Every year, a group of local citizens serve on the Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury. Following up on complaints from the public, they investigate how local government is working. Their reports don't always make the headlines, but they shine a light where it counts. Tonight, we'll learn what they uncovered this year. Stick around. Welcome back. Santa Cruz County has a climate action plan, but here's the catch. The grand jury found most people don't even know it exists. Joining me now is Mike Weatherford, foreperson for the 2024-25 grand jury. Welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to see you. What got the grand jury interested in looking at this?
Well, the county, Santa Cruz County, like other counties in the state, have a mandate to try and achieve that's been set by the state, and we wanted to see how the county is doing that and what education efforts they're taking to make people aware of climate action and the key drivers that contribute to that.
It seems like a pretty ambitious plan, and yet no one knows about it.
Well, it's very ambitious. There's no question, and I think one of the things that we emphasized was that there are partners that the county can maybe consider as part of their work. There's an air quality management district. There's all sorts of other agencies like that. So the county doesn't have to do it alone.
But it sounds like wrangling a bunch of agencies could be tricky. Who's in charge?
Well, it's definitely tricky, and each agency is in charge of its own destiny, so to speak. But there's multi-agency organizations across the counties and those kind of things that can do that. But the county has that responsibility around education of its and moving forward on its climate action goals.
So you mentioned that there are a bunch of agencies that could be involved. Are there nonprofits or private agencies that you found that could be working on this?
There probably are. None of them come to mind. That doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So apologize if I missed that.
Yeah, like Semper Vitus and those guys. I mean, the Redwood guys.
Right. Absolutely. And though they spend part of their missions are to provide information and outreach concerning climate action activities.
Yeah, but they're all on their own. So
right, they're all on their own. They have different.
Thing.
Yeah, they're on their own. They have some different agendas, that kind of thing. But doesn't mean you can't bring them all together and at least start to develop a single plan. Yeah. And one of the biggest areas of climate concern is basically tailpipe emissions. And so, part of our report focused on, we need to make people more aware in the county about the impact of decisions I might make concerning driving, and maybe looking at alternatives around that.
So what other recommendations did you make? Certainly, people should ride bikes and use the bus and that sort of thing. Are there other ideas that you've given?
Well, I think it's mostly just kind of develop a plan. and stick to it, and it seemed like the county started to work on it several years ago. The website, when you looked at it, was old, had old information. So just kind of let's reinvigorate our efforts and refocus.
Okay. Well, of course, acting on climate goals often requires real-world changes like building upgrades and solar installations or home retrofits. And that brings us to our next topic, the building permit process.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so this isn't the first time that the grand jury has looked at that. In fact, they've looked at it 3 times.
Many times, yes. and I guess it says something in and of itself when we keep going back to the story here. And it's important that we hope that the agencies that we have made findings and recommendations to take those findings and recommendations to heart. We know that the county has engaged an outside consultant that's doing much of the work that the grand jury had kind of done as well, in terms of just kind of interviewing customers and finding out what the key issues are. And as a matter of fact, that consultant's work was the initial findings were very similar to what the grand jury found.
So one of the things that I read in your report was that that consultant, I think, found that they have kind of a culture of no.
Culture of no, yeah, it's terrible. And with that brings delays in work, and with that brings lots of cost to the owner of the property. While they're waiting for a permit, they're frequently taking out loans from a bank or something like that for construction, and those loans have interest on it. So the longer that occurs, the more people are incurring in costs, driving up the cost of real estate. And that's one of the big issues here statewide, but certainly in Santa Cruz as well.
It's really trickled down.
It definitely is, yeah.
Our houses cost more.
Houses cost more because there's, interest is a big part of your loan.
Yeah.
And that contributes to it.
Holy cow. What are the biggest problems or the most common, I should say, problems do people run into when trying to get a building permit?
Well, I think it's that there's multiple agencies or regulations involved. Septic tank, as an example. You think you're building something unrelated that doesn't require that, and sure enough, there's maybe a septic tank issue that comes up, or other kinds of regulations that may have been adopted since maybe the property was initially built, and so coming into compliance with that.
So they're not grandfathered in if you have a house from the 1800s.
Yeah, maybe it is, but those issues do come up. They at least ask the question, and that becomes part of the work, I think.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you revealed, this is the craziest one of all, I think, is people put in their application, they filled everything out, and then they get what they call a surprise thing added on to their permit. And the best one that you articulated in your report was this man who has 50 acres. He's building his own home in the middle of the 50 acres, and they asked him to soundproof his roof.
Yeah. For what? It's the Eagles or something? I don't know, but
it's way too noisy out here for the robins.
Yeah.
So that just makes me think, okay, if you want to avoid surprises, be prepared. So is there a way to go and find out what you really need to put in your application, or is it just you just do your best and they come up with things?
Well, I think people seek contractors or builders who have experience in working with the county that try and anticipate that, and that's probably part of the work that's involved. But you shouldn't, this should be something that almost any builder can pick up on and learn about and advise their client and proceed.
Is there like a list or a class, or is there some way of like knowing, or just going like, I'd like to build a room onto my house? What will happen?
There are, in fairness, some resources that are for fairly straightforward kinds of things. But those are not the big issues. When you look at the fires in Los Angeles or the CZU fire, those are big projects to rebuild someone's home, and they're just not set up for that kind of thing. The resources I'm talking about.
Yeah, I guess not.
The simple things like maybe remove and replace windows in your house. That's a fairly straightforward kind of thing.
I'm surprised that requires a permit. So one of the things that you had suggested was making some things no permit and making the easy permit, or moving the easy permits to no permit, and then having some of the bigger things be an easy permit.
Well, there's all sorts of maybe different ways to go about it. One of the things that we identified, though, is maybe because of just the permit process, the county's perhaps missing out on some revenue opportunities. And so you need to kind of weigh all those different kinds of things as part of this analysis. And we've also recommended that they look at their fee structure and consider different ways to manage that.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you suggested about working on the culture of no?
Well, I think that what we saw was reinforced through our interviews and those kind of things, and culture is a difficult thing in any organization to change, and that was certainly also brought out by the consultant's report as well. So I think an awareness, first of all, that maybe there's an opportunity there, and how can we start fresh?
Oh, I want to ask you one more thing. I think you had suggested an ombudsman for people.
Yes, we did. Yeah, and there's an opportunity to fund that role and to just kind of help with some of the outreach and just try and put maybe more of a face on the agency itself, to that people can feel comfortable working with the agency. try and break a few, make things easier.
Okay, well, while permitting kind of influences where we live, the next story we're going to talk about is about how we live, especially when you're under stress. And one of the things that is really difficult for people, and hopefully it never happens to any of us, but sometimes you get in trouble driving and you might encounter the police. And
Right.
one of the really scary things, I guess you guys looked at studies that said being handcuffed is really traumatic.
It is very traumatic.
And
yeah.
in Watsonville, they handcuff a lot of people and take them to jail, where in other jurisdictions they just cite them and let them go. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit about why you took this on?
Well, I think we took it on because there was just a general awareness, first of all, through just different community justice programs and those kind of things that brought some of this to light. And as we investigated it, we learned that there was a difference in terms of how the Watsonville Police Department manages this issue compared to others. I do want to emphasize, and it's in the report as well, there's nothing to say about the police in Watsonville. The sense is that the police are very compassionate. They want to treat people just as they would their family, those kind of things. They aren't out looking for opportunities to handcuff people or anything like that.
It's kind of a standard procedure in some areas and in some instances.
Yes, definitely. And we found that there's maybe some instances where if you were in Santa Cruz County and the sheriff encountered you on a particular incident, you may not be handcuffed. You might be cited and released, but in Watsonville you might be handcuffed and maybe taken to the station there for additional processing. You may not be arrested or not, but being in handcuffs is a very traumatic thing.
Yeah.
And it can influence someone quite a bit.
Well, what did you think about the process that the police were using, or were they using a process to determine whether this guy we handcuff, this guy we let go, or they just always take you away?
Well, part of it has to do with just kind of the level of comfort that the officer has in the situation. Mm-hmm. And our report, we wanted to emphasize that the officer's safety is imperative. So we want to emphasize that. That said, there's maybe some differences in officer experience and therefore comfort with the situation. Maybe a newer officer might be less comfortable with something and maybe more prone to do handcuffing compared to a more experienced officer. And we found that when you kind of look at the Watsonville Police Department's compensation program and other kinds of things, there might be an opportunity there to improve retention of officers by maybe looking at their compensation and benefits.
And keeping them more experienced.
Right,
by
exactly.
just raising the bar a little bit. I saw your chart, and it seemed like a lot of Watsonville policemen might become sheriffs, because that's a much nicer.
Well, that's an issue across all departments, and I'm sure Scotts Valley competes with Santa Cruz, who competes with Watsonville, who competes with the sheriff.
Yeah, and you can see why.
Yeah.
Other than give them a raise, were there any other suggestions you made about the police department?
Well, just review of their policies and procedures. We had several findings and recommendations, and we're anxious to hear back from the department on those findings. There wasn't any initial disagreement with our findings, and we appreciated the cooperation with the police department in our work.
Well, feeling safe in your town is important.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and we want people to feel safe, and we want people to have appropriate justice as needed.
Yeah, on a case-by-case basis.
Yes,
which I
definitely.
guess is a tricky part until
It's
you've
very
been there a
tricky.
while and you kind of understand human cues and what I know policemen have been harmed by not handcuffing people.
Right.
So of course they want to
Definitely.
protect themselves, and
Yeah.
rightly so.
Yeah.
Well, concern for human dignity is continues in our next investigation. This one focused on human trafficking, a complex and often invisible issue in our community. So, what made the grand jury take this on? It seems like
Yeah.
no one knows about it.
Yeah, well, no one does. What people do know about it seems to be inconsistent in the levels of involvement in the county. Not exactly sure there was someone on our jury who was very interested in this subject and felt very passionately about the issue and educated the other jurors about some of the issues involved in it. So that's what really brought it to us. That being said, as our investigation in the issue continued, we found, if you ask maybe a nonprofit that helps support victims of human trafficking, there's a much higher level of incidence in the county than maybe what's reported through law enforcement and those kind of things.
Yeah, I read your report, and it seemed like some of the agencies thought about 200 people, and others thought a couple.
Right, exactly. I could think of one maybe a few years ago, and it's like, wow, that's a big difference in information.
So, what's the education like in town? Are people being informed? Like, do teachers know about this? Police officers, other government agencies, are they taught about it?
Well, yes, there is funding that has been through the school districts for a part of education in schools on just kind of awareness around human trafficking, and I can't really recite the exact curriculum that's involved, but that is one component of it. And in the past, and maybe into the future, there's a nonprofit that helps support some of that for some of the school districts, and it's woven into other maybe health education programs, things like that.
Does the county have like an outreach program where there are like posters or like where trafficked kids might get a little help?
Interestingly enough, there are actual laws that are around that, and they're statewide. So if you go into, say, an airport or a bus terminal or a train station, those kind of things. You mentioned you've seen them there. I've seen them at, say, San Jose Airport, but there's also in other places. And we did a little bit of a review of hotels in Santa Cruz County and found that very few of them have the signage that you would expect. And the enforcement of that is maybe a lower priority than other kinds of things. There is some question as to whether that signage really does anything or not. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it is a regulation, and certainly deserves some oversight.
It seems like even though the kids may not see the number and be able to dial it, people are aware that it's happening, and I think awareness is one of the
people are aware that it's happening, and maybe it's the old if you see something, say something, and if you're at a I know flight attendants are trained to look for this if they see someone who's acting weird on a flight or something like that, to bring that about, and the same kind of things for other situations as well. Are
the agencies in town that do work on this, the nonprofits and also schools and the sheriff's department, are they working together, or are they kind of on their own doing their own programs?
Yeah, there's an opportunity for them to work closer together. There is trying to think of the acronym, but it's through social services, a task force there that should be operating and meeting regularly about this, and the information we found is that they haven't been meeting regularly, and maybe it's because nothing to report. Well, maybe there's nothing to report, or is there something to report? Because the nonprofits are saying, yeah, there are things going on. And it's certainly you can get together and talk about best practices and just kind of maybe through our report say, we need to kind of reconcile this. On the one end, there's no or very little trafficking, and on the other end, there's maybe a lot.
So it seems like it's kind of under the radar, like kids are not going to the police or traffic people of any age or not. They're not alerting anyone.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
They just don't come in contact with them.
In some cases, we just don't know.
Wow, that's really a
Yeah.
conundrum.
Yeah.
So, what are the key steps that you've outlined for going forward? Are there ways to do a better job?
Well, certainly the task force that I mentioned that's in the county social services agency, getting that going. It's a tri-county, I think, agency or tri-county group, and just raising that awareness is and meeting more frequently about this issue.
So, one of the things that you mentioned in the report was that big things coming, like the Super Bowl coming, and that sort of thing, kind of makes that problem bigger.
It may, certainly that came about through some of the discussions with the nonprofits.
Yeah.
We have a lot of hotels here. There is, people engaged in that business, so to speak, and some of that might be driven through human trafficking.
Wow. Well, hopefully we get a handle on that.
I know it's a terrible thing. Human
Sure is.
trafficking is, the
Really
worst
awful.
nightmare as a parent.
Oh yeah.
Or
And
anyone.
even some grown-ups are involved.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they get looped in. I used to work in San Jose, and there would be guys on the corner selling oranges, and I learned that those guys are probably being forced labor.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
it's out there in the open. You just don't
Right.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, time is flying by,
Yeah.
and we're already at your final report, which was you looked at the behavioral health clients,
Right.
and they really they need a lot of care, but sadly their care costs a lot of money.
Right.
So it seems like a real difficult problem. I mean, you want to help them.
Yes.
And it's expensive to do it.
Right. Yeah. Well, the county, Medi-Cal is a very complex structure program, and the county is responsible for basically the severe behavioral health care and substance abuse.
So when you say that, I just want to find out what that term, severe behavioral health care,
Right.
what does that mean?
Well, I'm not a clinician, but there's mild to moderate and moderate to severe are the two
Okay.
categories. And actually the state has developed guidelines on given a patient's condition when they're mild to moderate and
Okay.
when they're moderate to severe.
Ah.
When they become moderate to severe, that becomes, under Medi-Cal, the county's responsibility. And the county is responsible for managing them. When it's mild to moderate, it's under the, I'm going to call it the responsibility of the Central California Alliance for Health, which is our local HMO for Medi-Cal. And our supervisors and other leadership in the county are on the board of the Central California Alliance for Health. And pretty much a lot of patients who are severe maybe started off as mild to moderate.
Oh.
And so the transition of that care can be better managed. And then once they become severe, developing the systems to understand what the costs are and what the care plans are is very important.
So if someone, is someone going from mild to severe, is that due to not getting care and then entering the system at a later time?
It could be a variety of things. I mean, I'm not a clinician, but there's a lot of things that bring on behavioral health, severe behavioral health issues.
All right.
And it could be substance abuse. It could be a variety of things.
Is this another place where people could work together? Are there agencies that could be joined up to do a better job?
Yeah, we recommended a closer alignment between the Central California Alliance for Health on developing a care management tool with the county, so that as people transition in and out, and typically if you're a severe mental health patient, you're probably receiving other kinds of care as well that's also covered under the Central California Alliance. And so just kind of having, if you will, one medical record that together we can look at and help try and manage the care.
Yeah. Is that the level of care tool?
That's the level of care tool, right? And that was recommended by an outside accreditation agency several years ago, and the county has not adopted it. And we're hopeful that through this report they would consider that, because a significant portion of the mental health costs are actually due to a very small percent of the number of patients under the care of the county. There's about 6,000 patients a year that the county cares for in severe behavioral health and substance abuse, and a very small percent of that 6,000 are really the ones that drive most of the costs.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you could see that,
right,
you could track them and
you just find the top 100 and just kind of look at that and get an understanding of the. I mean, I'm simplifying this, of course, but it seems, if you're going to be an insurer, you kind of have to know where your risk areas are. And the county is an insurer as well as a provider in this area.
And also, you could better coordinate the care. It would be like having two pharmacists. You could get drugs from this guy and drugs from this guy, and then, if they don't know that you're taking this, there could be a problem.
Yes, and some of the care is subcontracted out. The county doesn't deliver all of the mental health care or substance abuse care. There's Janus, there's other agencies like that actually provide the care, but making sure that those handoffs occur. And actually, if you look at the number of people in the county jail, about half of them or more have mental health issues or substance abuse issues. And once you go once you're arrested, Medi-Cal stops, and you become basically a patient of the sheriff. Now, the sheriff certainly has health care available in its system, but the disconnect occurs. And so, working more closely with the sheriff, and there are some efforts underway by the county to do that.
Yeah, and if you're getting different treatment from different agencies, then you're not.
Right.
Yeah, you're really, especially with that kind of care, it kind of needs consistency.
Right.
And,
yeah. If you've been in jail for 60 days or something like that, and you're discharged, that handoff to the outpatient behavioral health physician to say the patient's on this drug, that drug, making sure they come back and get their care.
Well, other than the tool, developing a tool, what other, or are there any other suggestions that you had for the county?
Yeah, we recommended that the county look at and Central California Alliance for Health look at maybe a closer alignment of administrative and perhaps moving on to financial sharing of responsibilities. And it seems like each of them are kind of working in a silo, and there's an opportunity to not work in a silo. That's one of the areas. And the California Healthcare Foundation, which was mentioned in our report, has some examples of counties that have moved forward in some of those initiatives.
Wow, Mike Weatherford, spokesman for the 2024-25 Grand Jury. Thank you so much for coming here and explaining these cases that you've worked on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and encourage folks to, if they're interested in the Grand Jury, to look at our website, and we are always looking for people that are interested in helping our community.
Oh, great. Okay. Curious to learn more? The full reports are available online. We've just touched the highlights. Check out the link on your screen and dive in when you have time. For CTV, I'm Becca Reed saying thank you and good night.